You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about the wet squib, which was the first test between England and India. It was set up so nicely on day 5 before the rain came and ruined everyone's dreams, mainly India's dreams. But I guess the hopes and dreams of some England fans as well. Then we will be taking a look at the second test at Lord's, which starts on Thursday. We'll all be there on Friday, live streaming the whole day from our seats. And I think we've got some cricket news. We've got Bangladesh absolutely hammering Australia. We've got some hundo, men's and women's. And if we have time, we might talk very briefly about New Zealand's T20 squad. Although, I mean, like, the news is basically they haven't picked Ross Taylor. So, yeah, maybe we've done that already. I'm Jack Hope. Today, I'm joined by Max Rowe-Brown. How are you doing, Max Rowe-Brown?
Hello, Jack. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. A little tired after a long weekend of going to people's weddings, but other than that, very good.
Very good. And Ross Legg. How you doing, Ross?
I'm pretty good, thanks. I'm really liking that Max is going with the helicopter pilot approach to podcasting. Over.
Yeah. Max, you used to have such a good setup with the fox in the background. What's happened?
Yeah. Well, I've been a bit nomadic over the last few weeks, really. I'm just, but such is my commitment to the podcast. I will try and dial in whatever way I can.
Cool, great. Before we get going, Ross, what are the messages for the listeners and the viewers?
Follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video if you're watching the video, and subscribe on whichever podcast platform you're listening on. And leave us a comment. We always love hearing from you. So get in an argument with Jack about, I don't know, how bad Mohammad Siraj is. Who knows?
Pretty bad. It's just the answer, isn't it? If I'm being honest.
We're also sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. So if you want a cricket bat, use the code TCP25 and you will get 25% off. I'm going to give a shout out to Bikram, who absolutely reminds us every single week to say that. So thanks, Bikram.
And head over to Patreon, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod, to donate generously to the three of us. Right, part 1, boys. India v England, the first test. I don't know why that took me so long to remember. There's only been like one test in 3 months anywhere in the world.
Sixth test of the year.
Yeah. It finished as a draw, Max. Do you want to quickly recap from your helicopter what happened in that test?
Roger that. So yeah, it feels like quite a while ago now, doesn't it? Wednesday when it all kicked off, and it started pretty well for India. They removed Rory Burns early on, and England succumbed despite one man, Joe Root, and his heroics of scoring some actual runs for England. England succumbed to a pretty dismal 183, and in return, it looked like getting even worse, didn't it? With India quickly reaching 95 for 1, and all hopes looking dashed. But evergreen Jimmy Anderson, came roaring back to drag England back into the game before India's tail wagged for the first time in 3 centuries to take the game seemingly beyond England's reach. But Joe Root was not to be denied, was he? And an absolutely glorious century from him got us into a situation where we were looking at the potential of a possibility of 4 different results on the final day, and some genuinely good 5th day test cricket. And then it rained, and then it rained some more, and then it rained again. And here we are with what could have been a barnstorming finish, and yes, the wet squib, as Jack puts it. And yeah, well, we were sort of thinking, what have we learned from this? But not really anything, because the game didn't finish. And I think what we've learned is that England's shit again.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. What I thought was, funniest, if you like, about yesterday's proceedings was how at 7 p.m. the night before looked fine. It looked like there'd be a bit of rain about lunchtime and then loads of cricket in the afternoon. in the morning, it didn't look much different. It didn't look like it was going to rain like it rained. At lunchtime yesterday, it still looked like there was a good possibility of play later in the day. People were saying 40 or 50 overs still possible. Even about 3 o'clock, people were thinking, if it dries up, it's going to dry up in a minute. We'll still be able to get back on after tea, and we'll have, the thrilling denouement as Anderson, Broad, and Robinson try to hold off India over the course of 2 or 3 hours before the close of play at, I think, 7 o'clock. And we didn't get any of that though. It just poured and poured and poured. It hosed it down. It wasn't like baby rain. It was
big boy
alpha male rain. Absolutely hosing it down. What actually did happen in the test though? Well, there were some good bits, but before we get into the good bits, would you like to speculate on what would have happened if the rain had stayed away? Say we got 60 overs yesterday, 70 overs yesterday. Who's coming out on top, Ross?
England. Easy. We absolutely rolled them. Bunch of absolute yellow-bellied cowards, the old Indian batting lineup. No way there. No, I think it would have been. I think India would have probably edged it. I think they had enough batsmen to go through. I'm not sure England had that in the tank, and people kind of, just take a Stuart Broad spell. He's taken 8 for 15 at Trent Bridge before. It's not going to happen again.
Just takes a once in a decade performance from one of your bowlers. It's fine, easy.
Yeah, and I just think it's got a little bit easier to bat on as well. And I'm not sure that the loss of KL Rahul actually was a massive thing. I think a session of Rohit Sharma, a session of Pant, a session of Kohli would have won the game.
Yeah, I mean, even Pujara was hitting shots at the end of
three boundaries in a row. That was the CSK form. Someone's been learning from MS Dhoni, haven't they?
Probably the highlight of yesterday in terms of the cricket or the cricket coverage was an interview that the BBC played with Pujara, where they talked about a trip he went on to Peppa Pig World. Can you imagine Cheteshwar Pujara roaming around Peppa Pig World in his time off?
Did he go by himself? That was a bit weird.
No, he didn't go by himself.
No, he went with Rishabh Pant.
Yeah, Pujara, massive fan of Peppa Pig. No, he was. I think his daughter is into it, so
okay.
on parental duty. But
it's banned in China, isn't it? It's banned in China because they think it takes the mick out of the communist state.
Oh,
there you go.
Well,
there you go. Fun fact about Peppa Pig. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 2 good things we've learned about Peppa Pig here, isn't it? The Pujara's been to Peppa Pig World and it's banned in China. Max, are you in India? Did you think India were going to win this? Are they the moral victors?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would have been, I'd say moderately comfortable for India. I think, maybe a 4 or 5 wicket win. I think they just got such a good start in that evening session. And I think that was going to give us an indication, wasn't it, of which way it was going to go. And I think 52 for 1 is maybe like an 8 out of 10 for India in terms of how well that session could have gone for them. And from there, like Ross said, it only takes one session of one of their, fairly prodigious talents in the batting lineup to put that game to bed. But yes, it is a rather a shame that we were denied.
Even one session of Bumrah, that would have been enough.
Yeah, I think the 3 out of 3. I thought India had that in the bag. Basically, I thought they were 70+% favourites going into day 4. I think me and Dan talked about it briefly. He thought that India had won it as well, more or less. So it's a bit unlucky for them. We'll talk about the performances, but and usually after these matches we do a what have we learned. I think the only thing we can speculate on, or the only thing that might, the performances in the game might have shifted some opinions either way in terms of series outcome. I think, did you both go 3-1 before the series? I was going 3-1.
I said 3-2.
Okay. Well, but nice one.
We'll go 3-1 from here.
So I said 3-1 India. Does anyone have a different point of view now? Or do you still think the Indians are going to come through and take this, Ross?
I think some of the batsmen showed a little bit of fight for England. I liked Sibley's innings. I enjoyed listening to you and Dan Weston kind of say really quite eloquently why he should be in the lineup, and we can kind of get onto that in the preview of the next test. But I think India's lineup just feels a little bit better. I just think they've got a better balance, and just their approach at the moment. You can tell they are the dominant Test side. England are playing like an underdog, and I'm not sure how often you can go on, Jimmy Anderson, can you come and take 6 for us? Come on, Stuart Broad, can you take 8 for 15? I just don't think there's as many there. Ollie Robinson, no, I hope he plays nearly every Test. He was absolutely brilliant for England, I thought.
Yeah, I did think the only reason I wasn't 100% sure India were going to win, if we had played on day 4, was that Ollie Robinson was getting the ball to really leap late on day 4, and we've seen who's similar to him in the world. Well, Kyle Jamieson's pretty similar, and India have really struggled with him.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that Ollie Robinson is exactly Kyle Jamieson.
Well, doesn't Robinson actually release the ball from a higher point than Kyle Jamieson?
I think it's slightly lower. But there's 3 of them. There's Robinson,
very similar.
Not Bumrah, Holder, and Jamieson. All release the ball from like way up,
ridiculous height. Yeah.
So there is a comparison there. Jamieson's played 8, 9, 10 tests now. So we've got a slightly bigger sample size of him dominating. But the sides are pretty good for Ollie Robinson. And I do think from England point of view, the one thing that may have shifted is the Ollie Robinson factor. Different type of bowler, can put pressure on India later in the innings. I mean, one of the things we talked about actually way back in the preview of the New Zealand series was that Ollie Robinson, he actually bowls better after his average goes down after, I think, the first 30 overs of the new ball. So, there's a lot of bowlers in England who are basically new ball bowlers. And if you pick 4 of them as your seam attack, well, 2 of them are new ball bowlers for their club, not bowling as new ball bowlers for England. So they're in a different role. Robinson quite clearly can do something that's very different to like Anderson and Broad and Curran. And I don't know, batting wise, I thought England were really pretty shit. There's nothing really that encouraging there. I think that India should overcome them. I mean, there's a problem. There's a problem for England. They picked the wrong team. And even if they pick the right team, you're not 100% sure they'd be an awful lot better. So,
on England's batting, we're looking at a situation here where in the middle order, you're thinking maybe Johnny Bairstow gets to keep his place for the second Test, and that's
100% he's going to keep his place. He's got 55
that's a pretty
runs.
sad, pretty sad indictment, isn't it, of that England batting lineup?
Yeah,
I think for me that Test it did make me feel a little more confident about the prospect of England actually winning one. It hasn't changed my mind about the series at all, but it does make you feel like we might be able to get one from somewhere, and I feel a little bit more optimistic about that than perhaps I would have done before.
Sure, I think probably India win this 2-1. I think that would have been the 3rd Test they won. It's been rained off. Yeah. I still think there'll be another draw because it just rains here all the time now. Somebody on Twitter I saw earlier left a comment. Maybe they don't know the British climate very well. They were like, "Why do you schedule cricket matches for when it rains in the UK?" It's like, it rains all the time. Like, it's not.
Yeah, that's why.
There'd never be any cricket.
It never doesn't rain.
Yeah. So there's that. Let's talk about a couple of the performances, and then I think we should do cricket news, and then we'll do the preview later. Okay. But if we talk about a couple of performances, we probably didn't talk about Jasprit Bumrah enough on our daily recap shows for this Test. I think there's a reasonable case he should be man of the match, right, Ross? Or Max?
He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He was the biggest threat in the match, right? You got Ollie Robinson probably a close second there, but Bumrah for India was their best bowler by a long, long distance. And it was clear that England's batsmen struggled with him. It was absolutely hilarious watching Stuart Broad come out and know what ball was going to be bowled to him, but still getting absolutely nowhere near it. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. But having that bowler who can blow the tail away, I mean, England do bat to kind of number 8, but still, you've seen the damage that kind of even pretty poor batsmen can do, like an extra 30 runs in these close games, especially when they're truncated by rain, can make a really big difference. And Bumrah is just fantastic at doing that.
Yeah, so in the second innings, he took 5 for 64, which is pretty good. And then the first innings, he picked up 4 for 46 and was very economical as well. Max... What I thought was particularly good I mean, it's always good, isn't it, from a bowler's point of view, that he picks up England's 2, 3, and 4, including Root after he's gone to 100 with the second new ball. How does he maintain that level of threat the whole way through the innings? Because we saw the other Indian bowlers. I don't know if they were struggling with the conditions or just trying a bit hard or whatever it was. But there was a big drop off from first to second in that second innings, particularly. What was Bumrah doing, do you think, that the others weren't?
Yeah, Bumrah, he was pretty much doing the work of three people there, wasn't he? But he was relentless. That was what it was for me with Bumrah. Like you didn't get any room to breathe, and that's why he's always put, being such a threat. Aside from the fact that obviously he bowls really weirdly, and it's clearly very difficult to actually deal with because he does it off like 5 paces or whatever, and it comes down in in a rather strange fashion. If it comes out in a rather strange fashion and is also regularly attacking off stumps and just outside off stump, you're going to get wickets, aren't you? When you bowl that well, and that was it. I think he was just showed everyone how to do it, and it was great.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about how he bowls a bit weirdly. He releases the ball. I mean, they did some good side-on shots on the coverage. He's released, and we were talking about Ollie Robinson's high release point. Jasprit Bumrah's releasing the ball like 2 yards further down the pitch than some bowlers.
His arm must kill. Like, I just don't understand that. I was talking about in the preview. Like,
it's elasticated, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no way that lasts. Surely not. At some point, the old trebuchet is just going to break.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's quite well used by Kohli. I mean, he didn't bowl the most overs in either innings, I don't think. They got Siraj, for example, in the second innings, to do a lot of the donkey work when the ball was old.
Yeah.
And used Bumrah as the strike bowler, as they say.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the mental side of it as well, right? Like, when you watch Bumrah play, it doesn't look like he has to get revved up to play. Like, if you consider, like, say, an Andre Nell or something, who is going to perform far better when he's got like a target and is pumped up. He doesn't seem to have that fluctuation.
Oh,
he seems to just,
Anderson.
Yeah, he just seems to have like that kind of cold, methodical kind of repetitiveness. We just like, do you know what? I can do this all day. Are you going to be better? I'm going to outlast you here. And there's a lot to be said for that approach.
And another thing that I think we should talk about. Well done, Jasprit, by the way, just to wrap that up. Player of the
He's
match,
a big listener of the show as well. We know that.
Yeah. The battle of the captains, I thought, was quite interesting in this match. Not if we put their runs to one side, because there's clearly only one winner there. If we talk about them tactically, I was actually quite impressed with Kohli, maxed through this match. I thought he captained India very well, kept the pressure on England. Even when his bowlers were misfiring a little bit in the second innings, they never really got away, and he had a few tactical tricks up his sleeve. Did Root get out captained a little bit in this match?
Yeah, I think he did. I think that's fair to say. I think there were a couple of wickets, weren't there, from the England batsmen that were very much traps and plans, and they came off brilliantly. I mean, you have to question the thought process of someone like Johnny Bairstow, who can see a man on the boundary and then hit the ball straight to said man. But Kohli.
We've all done it.
Yeah, but we're not England Test cricketers. Kohli set some traps. They came off. He had some plans when things weren't exactly going their way. He kept England's batsmen honest, made it difficult to score runs. Like someone like Dom Sibley, you could argue it's quite easy to stop them scoring runs because they have a very obvious scoring area. But you plug that up. He got him out in that with that sort of short mid wicket trap as well. So definitely on top. And in terms of the first innings on reviews, also on top. His second innings reviews were more akin to England's first innings reviews. There were some very, very questionable decisions there. I was just sitting there shouting. It's like, it can't be out. It's not physically. It's like it's hit him outside off stump. It's not even going to hit off stump. I think it was the one. Was it the Jadeja to Root one? It was like, what? Why?
That was weird. That? There were a couple of very odd.
Rahane was running up from slip and being like, no, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Just ignore him. Crack on. It's weird. Some of those decisions are really, really weird. You feel like someone has got to have eyes, right, and just see what actually happened. But
there was the Siraj one as well, the in swinger to Root, and it hit him so far outside the line. like so far, and I don't think it was hitting the stumps. And it was just like Siraj was absolutely adamant it was out. I was like, do you know the rules? Like, do you understand why on many levels the appeal that you're going up for cannot be out?
He was ticking, wasn't he? Do you reckon he got?
Well,
he
I was
just
going to
got
ask
some,
about
like,
this.
Bad news from someone in the morning or something. Was just really pissed off all day.
It's a good segue because me and Dan, I was talking about this yesterday, and you know, my general view is that if you're going to be big man, you've got to really be backing that up with some substance.
Yeah.
You can't be bringing baby rain. You need to be bringing alpha male rain.
Damn right.
But I thought he was very much. What he was doing, he was moving the ball around all over the place. It was quite impressive lateral movement he was getting, but it was like never in the same place twice. He tried like a succession of 85-mile-an-hour bouncers to different people. Fair enough, he got Bairstow out, but Bairstow's the thickest man alive. So, you know,
well,
was that a success?
What Bairstow struggled from there was that in the 100 with the shortest boundaries, that was a 6. It's the 100. That's why they got out there.
I thought that he, you know, made himself look a bit like a chump, you know, taking 2 for 84 from his 25 overs in that innings and 1 for 48 in
Giving
the
it
first.
large.
I don't know. Do you have a different view, Ross? I know you like swearing at people on the cricket field.
Only when it's justified. Only when it's justified. There's always a principle behind that behaviour.
In fairness to Siraj, if I was playing against Bairstow, I'd probably swear at Bairstow.
Yeah, well, Dom Sibley, as I said the other day, told him to fuck off, which is hilarious. So he's clearly rubbing people up the wrong way, which is good. I think sometimes that's a bit, it adds to they kept on getting the theatre of it all. Atherton kept on using that term, and it's true, right? The theatre of Test cricket is better for like the interpersonal battles that are on the cricket field. So actually, I hope he plays again. I mean, he probably shouldn't play again if you're India. You probably bring in Umesh Yadav or someone like that, but I think Sharma's probably still going to be injured. They reckon he's not
injured. So, I think there's a rumor, isn't there, that he's injured, but nobody can explain what the injury is. He hurt his hand against New Zealand a month and a bit ago. It's unlikely to be that because it was stitches, unless he's got sepsis and nobody said anything. Then it's not going to be that. Generally speaking, when a cricket board like the BCCI says the player failed a fitness test, and so we're picking this guy, but we're not going to tell you what the injury is. It's a selection point, and they just don't want to be asked any questions about it. And
I think you're pretty fair.
I think that's 99%. I'm 99% sure that's what's happened here. And look, I don't want to go into it in loads of detail because it's a very counterfactual argument. But I do think India might have won this test if Ishant Sharma had played instead of Siraj.
Well, they'd also have won this test if it hadn't rained on the 5th day. So.
Well, yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, like you can't. They made a selection error, I think, but they probably are sitting around being like, we can't. We haven't done anything too badly wrong.
Yeah, he still picked up 3 wickets. They were expensive, but never mind. But I do hope he plays in the next Test match because I generally think it's hilarious where someone absolutely throws their toys at the pram.
Needle's great. Love a bit of needle.
What else do we have from this test then in terms of talking points?
The only bit for me is, at what point do we start to wonder if England's coaches are actually doing their job?
Go on.
Because Paul Collingwood, one of the greatest fielders of all time, no question about that, an unbelievably good fielder, is the fielding coach for England. England couldn't fucking catch a cold in this, and their catching has been an issue now for an extended period of time. Trescothick was a fantastic opening bat, but is that translating? I know he's only recently come onto the coaching staff, but is it the coach's responsibility to try and help them through this? Because it doesn't seem to be a marked improvement. I think was it Ramprakash who was the coach for like 5 years or so before that.
Yeah.
From my point of view, like there seems to be a bit of a disconnect there. You've got kind of old elite level players, probably really, really good coaches, and it's kind of not translating into performances. And I'm just wondering, at what point do you kind of turn around and be like, do England have the right coaching setup in this space, as well as the lack of talent that is available to them?
I don't think you can really blame the coaches because they don't pick the team. Like there's at least, I mean, I'm looking at the team now. I think Burns and Sibley, there's probably questions about Sibley because he's not scored runs for so long, but they're probably not imminent for the chop, or they shouldn't be in my mind. Zach Crawley shouldn't be there. Bairstow probably shouldn't be there, really. Dan Lawrence probably shouldn't be there. So what do you want them to do?
You
Like,
know,
you can't shine a turd.
It was kind of just that question, right? Because in we're obviously big football fans, us three, and in football, if something's going wrong with the players, instantly you're looking at the coaching staff.
Well, there's a whole question here, isn't there? Around like people have been saying recently, it's the ECB's strategic objective is to be good at white ball cricket and they don't care about test cricket. And in 2010, it was the other way around, and that's why England got to number one in the world. It's like, but then you're ignoring all of the facts, aren't you here, and all of the resources that these teams are dealing with. I mean, why are England the best white ball team in the world? Is it because they're trying really hard, or is it because they have like this golden generation of amazing batters that came through a system that had 2020 longer than any other nation, that had changed their domestic setup to condense the number of overs so they all got used to playing 40-40 instead of 50 over cricket? Then it went back, and so it was like, oh, you got 10 more overs to smack it. Plus they've imported a few players, plus they've got the best leg spinner since black and white footage in England. Plus they've got a captain who is able to give strategic leadership and quite clearly articulate to everyone how he wants them to bat and how he wants them to play. And then on top of that, you had like some freakishly good bowlers, like other bowlers come through when they won the World Cup. I mean, you had Archer in the fold. I mean, Wood bowling 95 miles an hour. That hasn't happened very often. So there's a lot of weird stuff that's happened in that space that isn't really because Trevor Bayliss was a genius. It's just that all of this perfect storm stuff happened at once, and you're getting kind of the opposite, I think, in Test cricket. You're probably, it's like probably a little bit of a lack of investment overall in developing those players. You've got a generation of players before that not retired at once, but have been slowly drifting away. A few of them were very good. So, for example, you didn't really need to develop an opening batter, did you, for 15 years because you had Alistair Cook. And then on the bowling side, you've a couple of those places I just nailed down. And then there's some more systemic problems. It's getting easier to bowl. It's just factually, that's a correct statement to say. It is now easier to bowl in Test cricket than it was 15 years ago. The things like the wobble seam, things like home advantage, are making a pretty big difference there. For the first time in cricket history, batters in Test cricket are averaging less than they are averaging in 50 over cricket. There's a big shift in dynamic that's like structural beyond what's happening in England that kind of exacerbates this. England scored nearly 500 runs over these two matches, over these two innings. You're probably taking that with England's bowling attack. If England, I would go as far as saying that if England score 500 runs in the next 4 tests, they win or draw this series. The problem is that systemically there are some issues around who they pick, and that means that they are unlikely to have the batting talent, the best batting talent available. So getting 500 might be quite difficult.
That's up to Joe Root, isn't it? Getting 500 runs, basically.
Yeah. And then the talent pool at the lower level is, frankly, historically weak. And I don't, if you want to get into this in a little bit more detail, that's not because they're playing cricket in April, by the way. Like that's not how it works. These guys aren't picked off the street to go and play for Nottinghamshire, then they learn how to play cricket. There's a whole development process to get somebody into county cricket. And by the time they're into county cricket, they're 95% there. You can tinker around the edges, you can work on mindset, you can do some coaching in terms of covering weaknesses or maybe building a strength. But they're nearly done. When they're delivered into that environment, they're nearly done.
Oven ready, you might say.
Yeah, I mean, or they should be. If they're not, then you've got problems with your coaching at a lower level. And I think that probably is where the situation is. They're just not developing enough batters at club level, basically. There aren't enough
in terms of
potential players to make it into county teams.
In terms of your coaching point as well, Ross, I think the other point is kind of that just with football, you have 11 people that you need to get to play together properly for it to work. With cricket, you just need 11 guys who are good at what they do on their own, and it kind of all falls into place, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if you want to look at football for another example, when England were really bad, 2010 was it, when we got smashed out of the World Cup by Germany, the response to that wasn't really we need to change how we're coaching our elite level players. It was that we need to develop better players. Now there are better coaches at a lower level. There are more kids being taught more advanced stuff about the game, and there are better pathways into academies that can give better advice and provide better resources for people. You don't have that in cricket. Basically, you just get funneled into a private school, and you're not creating, or you're not giving enough people a pathway in. And you get some really stark outcomes from that. We've said this loads of times on the show. 35% of the recreational players in this country are of South Asian heritage. Where are they in pro cricket? Well, they're not there because they don't go to private school. So something, like just from that fact that you're losing a load of these players that are supremely talented. We play against them all the time in London. There's some really, really talented players. Some of them are kids that we play against, and they're really good. They're not getting through, though, because it's easier for the ECB and for counties just to say to Whitgift School, who have you got this year? We'll sign one of them. And that's that's actually the structural problem. But to talk about that's really boring. Like, it's easier for Agnew and for Vaughan because they come from this world.
Oh, insufferable. It's
easier for
today.
Them from this world, because they come from that world, to just say it's because we're not playing county cricket in April. I mean, it's a load of bollocks. The Indian team never play first class cricket once they're good enough to play for India. Never. Brainless. Anyway,
I enjoyed that.
Anything left on this test?
No. I think
we'll do that.
I mean, we got a lot of content out of a game that rained off. I have to say, day 4 was one of the best days of Test cricket I've seen, though. It was so good. It went one way than the other. Really, really thrilling stuff. Just a reminder, you can find us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Actually, no, we're not going to do that now, are we? Do you want to do the news quickly? Just rattle through it.
Let's rattle through it. So hilariously, because when things are going bad for England, fortunately Australia are there to back us straight up, as they've been hammered 4-1 by Bangladesh in the T20 series. Bangladesh wrapped it up by bowling the baggy greens out for 62 today. That means that Australia have now lost 8 of the... Actually, before we get into that bit, this is not taking anything away from Bangladesh. Bangladesh have got a good set of players, but the resources that Australia have available to them, the fact that they've got a franchise league, the fact that they've got mega stars who play in the IPL, it is hilarious how much they seem to not care about T20 cricket, or how much they are bad at doing T20 cricket as a nation. They've now lost 8 of the last 11 T20 series. They've lost the last 5 in a row. So that's to England, India, New Zealand, the West Indies, and now Bangladesh. And yes, they rested a few of their big guns. But there's major questions to be asked about Justin Langer and the approach that they're taking. At the moment, they think Mitch Marsh is the answer, is their saviour. Just not going to work out, is it? And they can't get the selection right, and they can't do the batting positions correctly. Like, it's not that difficult when you look at T20. There are so many analysts. Like, if Dan Weston was to get his hands on the Australia team, he would do a better job than what is happening at this point in time.
Yeah, they're bad and they're dumb. That's a toxic combination. Obviously, some of their players aren't about. So there's no Steve Smith, no Warner, Maxwell. I don't think's there. And you'd think they're all going to come back into the side. Even so, though, they haven't got players like Josh Inglis playing, and that is a problem. Because you should be, if you're going to pick a second team, fine, but pick your best second team. It's just slightly odd that they still think that Moises Henriquez is.
I can't believe that. That's just insane. You've got a chance as well, haven't you? Like, if there's a few people out, okay, let's have a look at some of the younger guys that's built for the future. And we've got 87-year-old Dan Christian and 72-year-old Moises Henriquez. He did, but he also was part of an Australian team that lost 4-1 to Bangladesh. Yeah. So. It's not, that's not, he's got experience, but that's not like, if you're surrounding him with younger players, maybe it makes sense, but you're not, are you? They're just like, let's just throw in whoever. It's ridiculous. Let's see him play Sri Lanka for the wooden spoon. That's what we're gunning for.
Did you see as well that New Zealand have announced their team for the T20 World Cup already? There's no Ross Taylor. So Ross Taylor's white ball international career. Looks like it might be might be over. One of the only players to play 100 matches in all 3 formats. That's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Although maybe his time's passed.
I think his time has passed, really. I think it's time to focus on some of the other cricket. If he continues to play Test cricket for ages, great. But I think they've got some really exciting players in that young Kiwi side. So people like Finn Allen, Glenn Phillips in that side as well, maybe not quite as young, but some good people that kind of need that opportunity. Ross Taylor's not making it to all the rest of the World Cups in the next few years. And you never know. Could always come back as the kind of, what did England used to do? Like bring in Mark Ramprakash to get quick savers, hit some runs, or Graham Thorpe, whoever it was.
Speaking of Glenn Phillips, I think he's on the bench, isn't he? For that World Cup. So Adam Milne is certainly not in the squad. And I think they've left Glenn Phillips on the sideline, which is a bold call. If true. I mean, I don't know if it's the final squad, so there's the possibility that they do switch it up slightly, but they appear to be favouring basically Tim Southee over Milne, and I'm not sure.
I'd be taking Milne in that squad, all day long.
I 100% would too. Then finally, we'll do a quick update on El Hundredero, the 100, as it's called. There's about a week to go in the tournament. Very close in both sides of the competition. And we're at that kind of stage where the initial excitement has faded, but we haven't got to any of the big elimination matches yet. So you're just sort of working our way through the fixtures, and it's raining loads. So every second match is off. In the men's tournament, things are really close. So Trent Rockets are top on 8 points. Then the Oval Invincibles and Southern Brave both have 7. And then the Originals, the Phoenix, the Superchargers, and even the Welsh Fire have got enough points and games in hand and stuff that they have a chance. I think here's where we might see the benefit in terms of which teams get to play the bad teams twice. So Birmingham Phoenix, for example, they have to play Trent Rockets again, which is going to be a tricky match for them. I mean, like, compared with the Oval Invincibles, for instance, who have to play the London Spirit, a team who have won 0 games so far. And
in fairness, London Spirit's only point came against the Oval Invincibles, so it's not. Maybe it's the bogey team.
Thanks to rain.
Yeah.
And then like the Welsh Fire v Southern Brave. That's a bit unlucky on the Welsh Fire that they've had to play Southern Brave twice because they are probably the best team. The biggest highlight of the week, I think, in the 100 was James Vince's helmet. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
Okay, so
I thought you were about to talk about Alex Hales' helmet.
Alex Hales' helmet, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll do that as well. They're both smutty. I don't know if you've seen the Southern Brave logo, but it's like an S and a B next to each other. And one of his teammates has basically scraped off some of the paint and coloured in another bit. So that instead of it saying SB, it now says 69 on his forehead.
Nice.
Alex Hales.
If Chris Nash was in that team, you'd be like, that was Chris Nash.
Yeah, it might be. It might even be Chris Nash. Maybe he's there as some kind of consultant. I think the problem with the men's tournament so far is you've yet to see one of the big names really light it up. So
Moeen Ali is doing it right now.
Oh, is he?
Moeen Ali is just hit a 23 ball 50. He's hit five. He's hit 5 sixes, so he's coming to town.
Okay,
just so he can go onto the bench for the test match.
I was about to say not a single man has gone past 150 runs yet, but I think that might take Mo past. He's actually probably been one of the bigger stars. It's been dominated by the bowling. The 2 Rashids, Adil Rashid and Rashid Khan, 10 and 9 wickets each, which is pretty good. And that's sort of it from the men's side. In the women's, it's a 4-way shootout, really, or a 3-way shootout for the last 2 qualification places between Northern Superchargers, Oval Invincibles and Trent Rockets. Southern Brave have won 5 out of 6 with 1 defeat. I think bizarrely to Welsh Fire, who haven't been great, but that's cricket, baby, as Mike Atherton says. I think in contrast to the men's tournament, and a lot of people have said this, but it does feel like the women's tournament has been slightly higher quality relative to the kind of international game there. And I think if you take the top 3 women's scorers, Jemima Rodrigues, Natalie Siver, and Dani van Niekerk. That does kind of illustrate that the big players have turned up and done some good stuff.
And we got to see Shafali Verma as well today. Absolutely spank it around. Yeah.
Well, there we are. So that's that. The Trent Rockets are the one of those three teams, the Superchargers and the Invincibles, currently outside of the playoffs on net run rate. In terms of fixtures this week, I was going to try and flag the good ones, but actually on both sides of the tournament, it's kind of good team v bad team, or it's bottom teams playing each other. So there's not a lot that I can mention apart from obviously Friday's clash between the Trent Rockets and the Birmingham Phoenix, which I did allude to earlier. So if I was going to tune into a game this week, that would definitely be the one at Trent Bridge. I think the boundaries there will be quite small. I think they'll have a few days to prepare a new pitch. Birmingham Phoenix, if they win that, probably qualify. Trent Rockets will have a couple of goes to we'll
find ourselves a pub after the test match.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that should be good because we are at the game. That is it for part one. So we will wrap up now. Reminder, at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Like, subscribe. What's the other one?
Follow.
Comment.
Listen.
Laugh.
Listen.
Yeah. And we will be back shortly with a preview of the second test.